agriculture is the backbone of Indian economy. That means that it is a livelihood of majority of the people. Post independence, it was nearly 72% were involved in agriculture. Today also in 2015, 14, 15 latest data, even now 47.1% are involved in agriculture, right? National contribution to national income for agriculture is 18%. So it's a huge amount, right? That is why we still come under developing economy, and we are not yet in the developed economy class. Okay, then it is a source of raw material. I've told you all the agro based industries, they depend on agriculture. Okay, and it has a 13.7 percentage in total exports also. That means raw material and goods which are made up of agriculture stuff, these both of these include, and we have a good amount of exports of these products. Okay, so we are self dependent in food grains. That means what amount of food grains we produce is enough for our entire population, so we are self sufficient. Okay, and agriculture also supports the services like banking, transport, storage. A large chunk of this depends on agriculture, right? Because you need to store things, since agriculture is a perishable good also. You have storages so that when there is a shortage you can take out that stock. Banking, I told you, in rural areas there are credit facilities that are used by banks. Banks give credits to these farmers, small and medium farmers, at low rates. So all these things, transportation, food, taking food grains and raw materials from one place to another, all this is dependent on agriculture. To it supports trades and services also. I think we had done till here. We were yet started with problems of Indian agriculture, right? What are the problems that we are still facing in Indian agriculture? So the first problem that we have is rapid growth of population. This I have already told you before also. Our death rate has come down, but our birth rate is still high. So we have a rapid growth of population. The population is increasing by too much. So that means when your population is increasing, your area decreases per person, right? If say 10 years back there were only 20 people for 100 acres of land, and now after 10 years those 100 people have become 200 people, but the land is the same. Land has not 20, whatever I have given you, the amount of people have increased, land has not increased. We have learned this, that land is a fixed asset. Okay, land cannot increase, though the same land is now divided among 200 people. Okay, so the cultivated land, the area of cultivated land per person has declined, right? It was 0.43 hectare per person in 1901, which is now not even half, 0.20 hectares now per person. So area per person has declined. Okay, 72% of land holdings are below 2 hectares. That means they are very, very small holdings. Now, what is, if it is a small holding, you cannot use large scale production on that. You cannot use intensive, technological intensive, capital intensive technique in that. Okay, so which becomes a problem. So then your productivity is not that much which you should get. If you have a large scale, large land, then you can use capital intensive techniques, you can use the modern technology, which is not possible for small hand holdings. Okay, so this means productivity of your land is also much lower than that of developed countries. If you remember, in the third chapter we had learned that in developed countries it is the total land which is cultivated is hardly 3 to 4%, and its contribution to national income also is that much only, right? But that 2 to 3 or 3 to 4% land is able to provide food to the entire country. Okay, in our case it is 47% which is providing. That means our productivity is very low. Okay, that means what you cultivate per hectare of land is lower than the developed countries. Okay, then I had told you this also, I think, conservative outlook of farmers, that because of their ignorance, because of their low levels of education or illiteracy, and some of the superstitions that follow, They have not yet adopted the modern technologies to improve agriculture. Okay, which is also a hindrance to productivity. Then dependence on monsoons. I think I had told you this also, that our agriculture is still now after 70 years also, it is majority of agriculture is dependent on monsoons. Okay, if monsoons fail, crops also fail. You must be hearing it every year. Droughts in the parts of Andhra, droughts in Maharashtra. If your rainfall, if monsoons fail, crops also fail. Irrigation facilities are nearly in 45 percentage of land only, not in 100% land. So that 55% which is left is dependent on rainfall. If it is too much of rainfall, then also crops fail. If it is less rainfall, then also crops fail. Okay, so productivity, and other than that there are other natural calamities also, floods or earthquake. These can also affect your productivity. So all these things are not allowing us to increase our productivity. Okay, then I think I was explaining you this defective land tenure system. Okay, now if you have, you must have heard about pre-independence era, when landlord, that is the zamindari system, was in way. Do you have you heard about this in history?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, zamindari system is big landlords were there who had the entire land, cultivated land under them. They used to keep tenants with them. Okay, and they used to give those land to these tenants. The tenants were supposed to give them a percentage of their output, which was more than expected. More than expected, matlab they nearly used to take 50 to 70% of their output. Okay, so which was, the tenants were very poor, they did not have their own land. If they do not have their own land, the incentive to improve on land is not there. If I know that whatever I produce, 60 to 70% I have to give it to the landlord only, whatever said and done I will get that 40% only in my hand, then I don't have an incentive to produce more, because I do not get any profit. That 40% is enough for my sustenance, for my family's sustenance. I cannot sell it and gain more income out of it. Okay, so this is the defective land tenure system. These things have always hindered progress in agriculture, right? Although government of India after independence abolished the zamindari system, they took the all the land from the zamindars. There was a ceiling kept, beyond this you cannot have land, right? Rest of the land was taken from the zamindars, it was redistributed. But there have been lot of problems in this system also, especially there was no political will, there was red tapeism, there was politicians and these bureaucrats, they were hand in gloves, and actual thing did not happen. We will deal with all this also. So although government of India took steps, but still there are places where the zamindari system is still prevalent. Okay, so this is also one of the problem that we have, which does not allow us to increase productivity in agriculture. Okay, next is uneconomical holding. That I have already told you, we have very small size of holdings, less than 2 hectares. Most of the holding are small land patches. In small land patches, it is very difficult to have capital intensive technology. Okay, it does not give you those results. You have to have long, sorry, land holdings, big land holdings, so that you can use these. And even those 2 hectares, less than 2 hectares, are divided. Like if a farmer has 4 sons, so if he already has 2 hectares only, he will divide that land between his 4 sons, so the holdings becomes more small, right? So we have got very small patches of land. Then lack of rural credit facilities. Now this also has been tackled by government. Lot of banking systems, lot of agriculture banks have been opened past post independence, but still in remote areas, very remote areas, these facilities have still not reached. And the farmers, they depend on money lenders, right? Private money lenders. Now, what is the problem with private money lenders? Why all of you have switched on your videos? Why all of you, Ria, Ronak, Melvin, Shivam का तो ठीक है, उसका रहता है. You will not switch off your videos, okay? So these money lenders, they give credit and they charge a very high interest on that credit. Okay. So what happens is, even if a farmer is able to make profit out of his production, he has to pay a heavy amount of interest to pay back these money lenders, right? And one, he will take money, then again next year, he's, because he has not been able to pay because of high interest, again when he takes money, that interest is there plus the new interest is there, so it becomes a vicious cycle for them which they are not able to break, and they are throughout their life paying the interest only to these money lenders. Clear till here, all of you? Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Then we have inadequate marketing and storage facilities. Okay. Now these also, I told you that Indian economy, the agriculture is a backbone of Indian economy, because these things, the storage, transport, these all depend on agriculture. But still we do not have, it's basically the rural areas which lack these infrastructure, which lack proper connectivity. So from the rural areas, getting the agricultural raw material or getting the food grains to cities, and the storage areas are also not near these rural areas, they are quite far away, so they have to transport that material to these storage areas, which is difficult for them if proper infrastructure is not provided. That means proper roads are not there, they do not get these transporters to get these, because it is not economical for them also, right? So these things are also a problem for Indian economy. Then there are middlemen. Now what are middlemen? Because these farmers cannot take their produce to the storage or cannot take it to the market themselves to sell it, because of whatever reason, whether it is a storage facility shortage or it is a shortage of transport, whatever reason, there are people who buy from them and then take it and sell it in the market. So these people are known as middlemen. Now what do middlemen do? They buy from them at a lower cost and sell at a higher cost. Okay, so the profit is pocketed by these middlemen. Now why do farmers sell them at that cost? Because they do not have any other option. First, they do not have storage facilities, so they cannot store the food grain. It is a perishable item, they cannot just leave it in the farms to just, one rainfall will come and everything will wash away, so they cannot do this. Since they do not have any storage facilities and they do not have transport facilities ki they can take it to uh, the urban areas and sell it, they sell it to the middlemen, right, who take advantage of this situation and buy from them at a lower cost. The farmers have no option. What do? They need to sell their product. Okay, so that is why these middlemen, they sell the surplus and pocket the profit themselves. Okay, so this is one more reason why these agriculture farmers, they do not have an incentive, they do not work have. If you have an incentive ki, okay, if I work hard, I use all these technology, I will be able to have that much profit. They do not have this incentive, so they do not go for a more productive technology. Okay, clear the problems? Till here the problems are clear that we have in Indian agriculture?
Yes,
Only
ma'am.
Ved, it is clear. What about rest of you? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, okay. Melvin, what about you? Shivam? Right, good. Okay, these are points which you should remember, which you should learn, because the questions come very direct. Explain the problems faced by Indian farmers. So these points, or maybe they specify, explain 5 problems faced, whatever, so you should know all these points. Okay, then second is outdated. Next is outdated agricultural techniques. This also I have already told you that they use primitive things. Even today wooden plows and bullocks are used. If you go to rural areas, you will see farmers using them. Okay, so these are outdated techniques. These techniques do not help intensive farming. Okay, it is not capital intensive, it does not help in increasing productivity. Limited use of high yielding seeds and fertilizers, this we will study in details. These high yielding seeds and fertilizers, they are seeds developed by our scientists which give you more productivity per hectare. But these seeds, when you have to use these seeds, you need to use more of fertilizers. Your irrigation facilities should be very good because they require a lot of water, right? So when these farmers are not using these modern techniques, they are, they do not have the product, they cannot increase their productivity, and because of these two reasons the productivity is very low of our farms. Okay, disguise and seasonal management. Now this is also, you know, that farm, whoever is working as a farmer, they have a very limited amount of employment, right? The cultivation period, the harvest period, these are the times when they are employed in the farm. Otherwise throughout the year they do not work, or they migrate to nearby urban areas to find work, because it is a seasonal employment. Only during those seasons they can work in the farm, otherwise the farm is lying like that only. Okay, so it's a hardly during the monsoon period they have this. Then if they have rabi crop also growing, they might have employment for that time, otherwise they are not employed. Okay, so maximum of the time during which they are not employed, there is no contribution to national production. Okay, because they are not involved in any other thing. Then lack of agriculture research. Although we have made a lot of improvement, still agriculture research is lacking in our economy. Lot many we do not pay that much attention still to agricultural research. Okay, we will learn about green revolution and all. We have attained self sustainability in food grain, but it is not up to the mark. Like after 70 years of independence also, it is not that much. Okay. Okay. Now we come to, these were the problems that are faced by the Indian economy. Even after 72 years of independence, we are still facing these problems. Okay. So now we come to, what is the government doing to tackle these problems? Okay. What has the government till now done? Okay. So the first thing government did post independence was when it adopted the planning commission. Okay. Every 5 years we have a planning commission meeting, right? Every 5 years. So when they started, from the first year of planning only, they paid lot of emphasis on improvement in agriculture, because I have told you already, nearly 70% of Indian population was involved in agriculture only. So Indian government from the first planning, that is 1950-51 only, they started paying attention to agriculture sector, right? So lot of reforms, lot of things through banking and increase of storage facilities, all these things were brought in. So we will learn about them one by one. Okay, the first thing that was brought in was land reforms. I told you the zamindari system was very too much prevalent in Indian economy, and the farmers were actually staying over, the tenants were staying below the poverty line. They were very poor class. Okay, to change that, land reforms were brought in. Now, what are these land reforms? Right, there are few parts in this land reforms. We will study about this in detail now. Okay, first thing that the government did was abolition of intermediaries. Intermediaries means the middlemen. The middle one approach was abolished and the zamindari system was abolished. Okay, the tillers, that is the people who actually work on land, they were made the landowners. Okay, ownership rights was given to these tenants, right? Those who are actually involved in cultivation, so that they get a incentive to produce more. Now when the land belongs to them, they will have this incentive ki, yes, this is my own land, I want to produce more from my land. Okay, so zamindari system was abolished, middleman system was abolished. Okay, second is tenancy reform. Tenancy reform is uh, the left of the tenants, some of the there was a ceiling limit. We learn about the ceiling limit also. There was a ceiling limits for the zamindars ki this much only land you can hold, rest of the land was divided among the tenants. Okay, after this also some of the tenants were left who did not have any land. Okay, so for them the rights were secured. Okay, and rent was fixed for them. They don't have to give 70% of their production or 60% or 70%. It was fixed to one third of the produce. Only one third of the produce will be going to the actual owner. Rest two third will be with the tenant. Okay, so their rights were secured, rents were fixed. Okay, then the next reform was ceiling on land holdings. This I have already told you. The government set up a ceiling limit that beyond this you cannot hold cultivable land. The rest of the land which was left, right? The government confiscated that land and distributed it among small holders and landless laborers. Okay. Then consolidation of holdings. What government do? I told you ki Indians cultivators had very small land holdings. So what government did? They had a talk with these landholders. They consolidated it. That means they bought together these small land holdings and made it into a one big holding and gave it to one. Okay, and this was done with concessions from the farmers. Like suppose I am a farmer, I have a small holding here, then I have a small holding 2 kilometers apart, then I have another small holding another 5 kilometers apart. So these are three small land holdings. What was done was where my first holding is, there only the nearby holding and 2 3 holdings were mixed together and made one patch. Okay, one farm, and given to one person. Instead of that, what happened to my, now I have lost my holding, right? So I will be given land somewhere near where my second or my third plot is there. So that much land was given to me that side. Okay, this way consolidated farm was consolidated and one person had a big enough farmland to cultivate. Have you understood this? Have you understood this point, how consolidation was done?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
It is clear, no? So this way governments were in consensus with the farmers. They consolidated different, formed it into a big farmlands and then redistributed it. Okay. So this is separated small holdings converted into one big with mutual consent and redistributed. Okay. Then there is a concept of cooperative farming. Now what is cooperative? Other than this consolidation of holdings, suppose they don't form a consent or redistribution has become difficult. So this cooperative farming concept was brought in. Now what is cooperative farming? Cooperative farming is where my farm is the nearby farmers of mine. Okay, we all have small holdings. What we do, we combine our holdings, make it into a one big holding, and all of us work together on cultivation of the entire land. So what happens in this, you can have the advantages of a large scale production. That means you can bring in intensive technology, you can bring in capital intensive, all of us are working together. Okay, but we have we have our individual ownership also. So when the produce is there, depending on our holding, the produce is divided among the farmers. Is it clear to you? Like suppose a group of 5 farmers are bought together because their land was nearby. Okay, so all of that 5 farmers land was mixed. All the 5 farmers are working on that land together, right? So when the produce comes, when it is time to harvest, the produce is divided among them depending on how much land who person has. So their private ownership is maintained, but they have cooperate with each other, make it a big land holding so they can use large scale technology, capital intensive technology in that farm. Is this point clear? What is cooperative farming? So you cooperate with each other and increase your production. Is this point clear? Cooperative farming, right? So consolidation, if consolidation did not work, then they used cooperative farming. Okay, right? So till here were what the government did to increase productivity. Now where did we fail? We did fail because till now we are not there where we were supposed to. We are self-sufficient, that's a very good thing, but we could have achieved more. So why did these reforms fail? Okay, we'll study about these now. How much time are we left with? Okay, we can finish this, right? Besides Kerala and Bengal, these land reforms were not successful. Can you give me a reason why? Besides Kerala and Bengal.
Because of the literacy level.
Yes, 1 point. And Kerala and Bengal have mostly been socialist type of an economy, right? If you see, not India as a whole, even every state has their own economic forms. Kerala and Bengal, yes, their levels of literacy was very high, and they have been mostly a socialist form of economy. Okay, if you go through the history of the political history, it's mostly been socialist. Now, what happens in socialist? The government takes everything and then redistribute it. We have learned socialism. There is lot of government interference there, and private ownership is not there. Okay, so that is one of the reasons why in Bengal and Kerala this was successful. Okay, and rest of the country it was not that successful. Okay, so let's now, first point is weakness in the legislative system. I have already told you this. There was a consensus, or there was a hand in gloves with bureaucracy, politicians and the landlords, that is the zamindars. So they were able to transfer. What they did, they transferred land. Whatever is fixed for one person, they took that much land, transfer the rest of the land in their family members name. Okay, so when you transfer the land in family members name, it is separate people having separate land holdings. Yes or no? But the entire land holding is still in the family's name only. So this is how they managed to keep their land away from government. Okay, so government was not able to confiscate the extra land and give it to the tenants. Is it clear to you? Yes, this is one of the loophole of the legislative system, right? Then tenants who were given rights also, they were later evicted. Now how they did that? Because there was, the bureaucrats were with them, the police force of that place was with them. So what they did, initially in on papers they showed कि yes, the land has been given, it has been given to the tenants, but afterwards they took the land back from them and evicted those land. Now this, because they are very poor people, their ill educated, their education levels were not there, illiteracy was there, they did not know their rights. If they don't know their rights, they don't know what are the government policies, they cannot use the law, take the help of the law and get it back. Okay, so that was one more reason. Then poor and landless farmers were ignorant. I've told you, low levels of literacy, very illiterate, they are very poor, they are very illiterate, they don't know what are the rules and regulations that the government has made. So when they don't know, they will listen to what the landlord said or what the zamindar said. So they did not ask for their rights. Okay. Too much time taken by courts to settle disputes. Now it takes 15 years, 20 years to settle disputes. A person is not even alive by that time. It is the child of that person who is fighting the case. So this is one more reason. Half the time people leave the case. It is taking so much time. Who is going to spend that much money, right? So half the time it happens, it is a failure of the legislative system. Now if something, a case takes this much years to finalize, who is going to run after it? Nobody, right? Who they, you have to spend money. These are poor landless farmers, how much money can they spend? Okay, so that was one. Basically it is the failure of the legislative system and the government. Okay, then lack of political will. This also I have told you already. There was a lack of political will, their self interest, bureaucrats and the politicians, their self interest did not help government to successfully implement these, right? They were hand in gloves with these landlords and zamindars, they helped them, they found loopholes and helped them to go get away from these loopholes. So these were the failures. Why these the land reforms were very good, but why it was not a success? Okay, then second is technological measures. I was telling you, what was I telling you? Land reforms were the first thing that the government, we are learning measures that the government adopted, right, to help in increase in productivity. So first was land reform. We learned what land reforms the government adopted.